Hello everyone, this is Social Free State and I'm going to start doing videos on BitChute. I'm not really keen to do these on YouTube anymore, that's just because of the censorship. And also I'm going to be talking about COVID-19, and I just don't believe that we'll be able to keep our videos up in YouTube if we talk about COVID-19. So we've been in this lockdown for many months now, since March, is it? April. And there's a lot of things which have frustrated me about this. First of all, I am one of those people who's a skeptic of the narrative which is going out from mainstream media. Personally, I don't watch the news. I find it really upsetting watching the news and their narratives because there's such bias. And from my position, where I was raped by an illegal migrant and who was an Asian man, and the police let it happen, I find it really difficult watching mainstream news and realising and recognising how biased they are and how they throw out these titles and names such as racist, Nazi, far right, if you ever talk about these sorts of things. So from my perspective, I haven't been watching mainstream media for many years, but obviously I have been getting snippets of information from the news. What I would say about the fact that I'm not watching the news, mainstream media, is that I have absolutely no fears about COVID-19. I'm looking at the sources of, primary sources of information, which really just shows that there's very little to worry about. Also, I know people who are working in key positions, as key workers, and I keep saying to them every time I see them, I say, you should be dead by now. And, they laugh and I laugh. And really, there's nothing for me to worry about with regards to this. So I've not seen anyone, I've not known anyone who has it. There's been a few YouTubers who have said that their family member has tested positive for it. Fair enough. I mean, what I will say is that I came across an article around about March time, and it stated that the government was going to be giving money or paying money to key YouTube influencers to keep on course of their narrative rather than any other kind of narrative. So that basically influential YouTubers were going to get paid to repeat government propaganda. So that makes me sceptical of some of the YouTubers out there as well. Personally, from my perspective, I do not fear this pandemic, what's being called a pandemic. I had spent a lot of time previous to this looking into the monetary system and our debt-based monetary system, and from what research I was doing, it seems as if it's on its last legs and needs to be altered. I'd also done a lot of research into the future of blockchain and how that will be the future of our monetary and currency system. So there's a lot of massive changes going on in society, and when Donald Trump became president, what he made very clear was that he was going to be pulling all his troops out of different countries. And what that means is that there can be no war to hide and distract people from what's going on with the changes, the massive shocks to the monetary system which are arriving. And what we've always had in the past is a lot of wars to cover the complications and the complexities and just the downfall of these monetary systems and currencies. And we don't have that now because majority of, well, not the majority, but President Trump became president, and he wasn't interested in war. So they've got nothing to hide the downfall of this system, and they need something. They need something to blame it on. You know how the left always says, oh, the right is blaming the migrants and all of that kind of stuff? Well, that's what the bankers need to do. They need to blame it on something. They need to blame their errors and their failures on something else, such as the wars which they've created in the past, and also this pandemic now. So I'm not a big believer in the whole pandemic. I do think that it was planned. I do think it's incredibly convenient, and I do think that there's going to be a lot of hardship now in the future. I think that Brexit is going to be a positive thing, because we won't have to align ourselves with regulations, but numerous unnecessary regulations which the EU has. So we'll be a bit more free to find our way out of this mess. Hopefully they'll deregulate. Someone mentioned to me that last time they deregulated things was with the BSE scandal happened. Now the BSE, and that was with Margaret Thatcher, she deregulated everything, and then apparently in the feed for cows were other animals, and you know, they were eating all of this, and then they became contaminated and diseased with BSE. Now the thing about BSE is that Neil Ferguson, Professor Neil Ferguson, who is involved in the computer model for this pandemic at the moment, the COVID-19, he was involved in the BSE scandal. So his computer model was involved in that, and I think that what happened was they killed off all the cattle, which destroyed an industry, and now we're killing off the economy with the COVID-19. So a lot of coincidences already, and I suppose when you do deregulate things, you can, these sorts of things do happen, but also, you know, anyone who doesn't like the idea of deregulation, you know, who has access to our sectors, public sectors, and influence on our politicians and stuff, they could use such a scandal to their advantage, to a political advantage as well. So that doesn't, although many of you may not agree that these sorts of things can happen, I certainly do think that they can happen, and I do think that I do find the EU to be very sort of communistic in its ways and features and its regulations, and of course I think that it would have been in its best interest for us to get hook, line and sinker into the EU. So all of these regulations of safety, which have been happening over the decades, have actually been regulations of lesser freedoms and lesser ability to work for ourselves and to be the creative beings that I think we're supposed to be. I think we are supposed to be creative, and I do think that we are supposed to, you know, push ourselves and have this kind of freedom to create and build, and I think we're so much more capable than what we're allowed to be because of all these regulations. So anyway, I'm going a bit off track here, but I was just saying that Neil Ferguson was involved in the BSE issue as well. I also believe that there's going to be issues with our climate in the future. So that is also going to have a lot of issues in combination with the fall of our monetary system. And the reason why I say this is because in 2015 2015, I think it was 2015, it could have been 2016, but there was a heavy snow downfall, and that was shocking to me, because I had been hearing all this stuff about how we were in a global warming period. Well, when it snowed, I was really confused, and it wasn't just a light snow, it was so heavy that my son was on holiday in North Wales, and he was stuck and stranded there for a week. He could not get home because the snowfall was so high that he couldn't even leave the property that he was in. So luckily he was with a family member, but he couldn't go to school for a week. And that was a big shock to me, because I was never expecting, snow. Let alone my son to be stranded in another country. So that got me thinking, well, if we've been told that there's going to be no snow ever again, and our children won't see snow, and yet my son got stranded in the mountains, then why did the snow fall? And I wondered if there was anything like a sun cycle or a solar cycle, which I found out that there is. There's a solar cycle, there's an 11-year cycle, and then there are other cycles, which are solar minimums, solar maximums, which is a lot of sun, and the solar minimum is very little sun, and there's grand solar minimums and grand solar maximums. So when we had the medieval warm period, and in the UK they had vineyards, then that was a natural occurrence which happened, and it wasn't anything to do with humans, it was just to do with the cycle of the sun. So this was all brand new information to me. I'd never even known about these sorts of things. So I started researching about solar cycles, and I came across some really good YouTube channels who discussed this as well. I think they noticed around about the same time I did that this thing is going on, and it's not making any sense because of what we've been told. And so, yeah, we've been lied to about that. Or, even if you don't believe that we're in a grand solar minimum, you've got to, surely you didn't learn about solar cycles in school, because I know I didn't, and I know that my son doesn't learn about this. He's only learning about global warming. He's not learning about solar cycles at all, and I never did, and I doubt very few people learned about that. So along with the solar minimum, what happens is that it will affect your growing, your ability to grow food, and agricultural production. So that can't be done on the large scale that we have had it in the past. Also, what I would say is that along with COVID, where people can't go into factories because they're at risk of passing on the so-called disease or virus or whatever it is, either the COVID is a useful tool to cover the fact that agriculture and products and just the growing seasons have failed, and they have done. When you look at the people like Ice Age Farmer, he's really good, and you'll notice that over the last 4 or 5 years the growing seasons and the production of food has really declined, and the ability to grow the food like the EU would expect you to. They have certain criteria of what is a preferred and desirable looking vegetable, well, all of that can't be done when you have really poor growing seasons. So that's going to have massive consequences on everything to do with our food and food supply and the chain of supply for our food. I mean, there are so many elements in this. It is unreal. And this is such a convenient way to cover it up. Just like war is a convenient way to cover up all these issues. When you look into our past wars and you find out that, yeah, they were struggling with solar minimums as well. They had lots and lots of ice and cold, and there were famines during those periods of time. And, you know, anyone, if you look at the Holodomor, I think that's how it's pronounced, in the Ukraine, the man-made famine, that was when the Ukraine was trying to become independent and its own nation. And the communists, the Soviet Union, they created a man-made famine against the people of Ukraine as a consequence for their desire to be independent. So this is something that is a habit of the communists, and I think, well, I know that there was a BBC documentary about Angela Merkel, and she was a communist. As a teenager, she was a communist, and she'd go on a train or on transport over to the Soviet, and to Moscow to follow in her desire to become a communist. But obviously she's a Christian leader of a Christian group in a Christian political party. Well, she says that, but I doubt she is. I suspect she's a communist from her actions and all of that. She still remains a communist. And I do believe that the EU is a communist union, and it's just pretending not to be. And then also, when you look at what's going on in America, they are a massive target at the moment. You know, there's going to be a lot of discomfort to Americans. They've got a lot of stuff coming from China, and China took all of their manufacturing and everything really from America. I think it's going to be so hard to Americans. Oh my goodness. But obviously this whole communism thing has a tight grip all over the world. And I think that is the end game for a communist society globally. But I do think that, you know, they are so harsh, they are so inhumane, these communists, that they would quite gladly see many people die. And I think that that's something that they want to achieve. It's quite sad really, and I guess what I'm trying to do is try and get everything in my mind out. Another thing which I want to say is that my medication for epilepsy, well, it's running low, and they don't really seem to have that much in the chemist, in the pharmacy. I was having, last year I tried the ketogenic diet, and that's mainly protein and very few carbs, if any at all, and that really worked for me. But obviously now, with the food shortages, that's not something that I can try at that same cost that I was trying it before. But what I would say is that in October, when we were watching things about, or when things were coming out about what was going on in China, I didn't actually believe that was going on. I just thought it was staged. And when I realised that it might not be staged, I thought, that's going to come here, that's definitely going to be coming here, so I better start finding ways to treat my epilepsy without medication. So that's what I've been looking at. I bought a copper bottle and apparently copper ions which come out from your water standing in the copper means that that's meant to be sort of like brain food, if you like. So that's, I've been drinking that in the morning and at night, and I wouldn't say it feels like a big change or anything, but I think that it's sort of having some kind of effect, positive effect. And also I bought CBD oil on the internet because I thought, and I bought loads of that because I thought, well, if we don't have the ability to find any medication, then I'm going to have to do it naturally, and that's probably the best route anyway if you think about it. So I've done that, but and I think I'm quite an intuitive person, because when I do notice these things happening I prepare well in advance, and I probably overstock on things, but I'd rather that than not have enough. But that all came true. My intuitive feelings that this was going to affect the medications of people with illnesses and health conditions was true, especially for me, but I suspect it's going to be the case for many, many people. And I also suspect that the second wave, which they keep talking about, I believe that that's going to be a lot of people who have not been receiving the medications that they were supposed to be receiving, and as a consequence they will inevitably, unfortunately, die. And I don't believe at all that it's because of the COVID. I believe it's because they died because they didn't receive the health care which they were supposed to receive and were dependent on. Another thing which I will mention about the healthcare is that Matt Hancock, the health secretary in the UK, stated that anybody who asked for a white doctor would not be able to receive any healthcare of the NHS, because that is a racist statement and they should therefore not receive healthcare. Now my issue with that is that we all pay tax to receive healthcare, so you should not be, well, he should not be putting conditions on this at all. I also put that into a search engine to search, and some Reddit posts came up of a nurse who had stated that someone asked for a white doctor and she deemed that to be, or he deemed that to be a racist comment, so they refused healthcare at that time. Now that Reddit post was made on Reddit at very similar time to when Matt Hancock said you won't be able to receive healthcare if you ask for a white doctor. Now my issue with that is that I'm still not comfortable receiving healthcare from Asian people, especially if I'm talking about what's happened to me. That's not comfortable for me. That's not something that I want to deal with, along with what I'm already dealing with regards to the trauma. So I do naturally ask for white doctors, and it's not because I hate Asian people or anything like that. It's because I am fearful, because I know that certain groups in society are permitted to treat other people in society in different ways, and they you know, there's certain groups who will receive a blind eye if they do anything which is illegal or harmful. So I'm not comfortable, I'm only comfortable with white doctors. But also, further than that, if you think about it, a lot of elderly people want British doctors with British accents because they can understand them better. You know, when they're elderly and they've got, you know, or you know, if they are dependent on their hard of hearing, then they need clear, concise discussion with someone who they can thoroughly understand. So they might want a white British or a British speaking doctor, and obviously the British speaking sounding doctors are usually white because, well, we're the majority, you know, ethnicity or race. So, you know, these laws and regulations are very, very strange, and they seem to be put into place to kill, in my opinion, to kill off the disabled and kill off the elderly. And then I think about Hadamar euthanasia centre in Germany. That happened, that kind of thing happened, the order following happened in Nazi Germany, where they started just to kill off all the disabled people because, you know, well, it's cheaper. And that's what you know, my mind again goes back to the monetary system, and I feel that it's all very much connected. Along with the whole thing with the Matt Hancock and the medication and all of that kind of stuff, and just, you know, people reliant on mass food manufacturing, and that's not going to be possible anymore, I don't believe. I mean, it's really worrying times, but as well as all of this, there are also the smaller issues which I'm facing, which is I live in a flat, and I am really dependent on having neighbours, and hoping to have neighbours who are understanding, empathetic, and, you know, willing to be considerate of their other neighbours, which unfortunately I don't have. I don't have considerate neighbours, or one of them isn't, and they are always partying, they're always playing their loud music, always banging, and when you're stuck in a little flat or a little bedsit or wherever you are, I'm not in a bedsit, but, you know, when you're in these situations, that puts incredible stress on a person. And all of these things are an absolute test. And I hope that you can all get through this test. I hope that you're seeing the macro picture, the whole bigger picture, because I think that a lot of people are concentrating on many or maybe just one issue, like the COVID-19, and deciding whether it's real or not. But I think this expands to a much greater picture. It's so macro, it's unbelievable. But unfortunately, I'm in a position where my family all watch the TV. They are such TV people, and my friends are TV people. They're obsessed with, you know, whatever the TV tells them, they think it. They don't think critically, they don't analyse anything, they don't look at the bigger picture. They're very focused on the television, what it permits them to think and what it doesn't permit them to think, you know, through its shaming, you know, and its name calling. They would call me, well, they do call me a conspiracy theorist, and I don't take any issue with that, because I think that they are much brighter people. They look at the whole picture rather than isolated incidents and just accept them as you know, whatever. But I'm feeling so alone in this, because I was really disappointed with my family in how little concern they showed in the fact that there was an illegal migrant brought over to this country to attend a bogus college, and that in itself is another story. I won't go into that, but they just didn't seem all that bothered. They were just like, oh well, oh well. And then when the media was telling them to be angry with Donald Trump for saying that illegals are here and committing, or in America committing crimes, they got really mad at that. And I said, well, that's true because illegals are here committing crimes. And if they commit one small crime, such as a, you know, if anybody commits a small crime, such as a, you know, shoplifting or something like that, they generally go on to commit greater, larger crimes. And I said, so committing the crime of arriving in a country when you shouldn't be here illegally, that's a pretty massive crime anyway. But then, you know, when you've done that, you sure as hell know you can get away with a lot more. So, you know, I just feel that I can't turn to my family or friends about any of my thoughts on here. So I'm just rambling, and I hope that's okay with everybody. I don't have, I don't know what else to say really. I guess subscribe, please subscribe. I'm going to do a lot more ranting, and I would say that I am a conspiracy theorist in that sense, because I don't follow the mainstream news. I do my own research, and my research leads me to very different ideas about the world to what they have brought to our attention. So yes, I guess in that way I am a conspiracy theorist, and I'm okay with that. But it just means that my family, because they've been told that conspiracy theorists should be ignored, then they are going to ignore everything that I say, and that leaves me very much alone. And I think I just need to get things off my chest and record it somewhere, and this is nice and easy, and BitChute hopefully won't censor me. So please subscribe if you want to, and tell me what you think. Thank you.